Welcome to Fun with Annuities with your host, me, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Can annuities be fun? Can contractual guarantees be fun? Absolutely they can. Find out the brutal facts about annuities with no sales pitches or high-pressure nonsense. Just the brutal and factual annuity truth, which is all you need to hear. Let's have some fun with annuities, and let's have that fun start right now. Welcome to Fun with Annuities. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. I am so happy that royalty, financial royalty, has joined us once again. She's been a guest on the Fun with Annuities podcast. I want to welcome all of our listeners on all the major podcast platforms and also on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel, where you can see our facial reactions and expressions and our guests. Let me tell you a little bit about her. I call her financial royalty because that's what she is. Her name is Terry Savage. She's actually one of my most favorite people on the planet. I actually just enjoy talking to her. The fortunate part is I get to record it, and then you get to listen in. She's known as the money lady and the bringer of what I call and what she calls and what she has trademarked as the savage truth. Here's the one thing you need to know about her. When she walks into a room, regardless of the room that she walks into, she's automatically the smartest person in that room. Welcome, Terry Savage.
Oh, Stan the man, the annuity man, and every other way the man. I show up just to listen to you introduce
Absolutely. Me. Anytime you speak nationally, you should just have me fly in. I'll pay my own way, and I'll just introduce you.
Okay. Speaking of paying your own way, I want to get this straight at the beginning. I sell nothing. I endorse nothing.
Correct.
I've been writing a syndicated column for over 30 years, first for the Chicago Sun-Times, now for the Tribune. Mm-hmm. I started my career as a stockbroker when girls couldn't be that, and I was a founding member and first woman trader on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. And when I talk about a product or a thing, I've never been paid to endorse in all those years anything, and I don't have any individual clients. Way back in the stockbroker days, I realized a huge responsibility that is. Right. And I just, I'm on TV and radio in Chicago a lot and do a lot of speaking around the country, but I have nothing to sell you. I'm just going to give you my best advice. You know why I can do that? Because I ate my own cooking, followed my own advice over the last 35, 40 years.
There you go. And like the last time she has been on, she's going to have a permanent page on theannuityman.com. We'll have a link to her site, which, oh, by the way, is terrysavage.com. And you can watch her videos. I like the one, I watched the one the other day, the replay of you with Warren Buffett. Yes, she does know Warren on a first name basis. That's who we're talking with today. But one of the topics for today I really like, because I was talking to Terry. So Terry, and I want to have you back on. Things are chaotic in the world, and she reminded me, which I knew, but it was good for her to remind me. She doesn't give outlooks or forecasts or things like that. She is probably the top expert in what I call the personal finance category. And she had put together her top 5 tips for the new year, 2022. And we're going to go through them. They're not some, hey, buy this or hey, buy that. It's not that. It's stuff that you really need to know. So with that, let's just jump in. Terry, the first one that we're going to talk about that you sent me the list is to open an IRS account at id.me. Can you explain why we need to do that?
Yes, and this is not a place you can go to, so don't just go jumping now on your browser. Let me explain what's happened. I'm in close touch with the IRS. I like it when they call me. I'm one of the few people, and we talk on a regular basis. The IRS has admitted most recently that it is about 11 million returns behind, not just refunds, but returns, processing returns from last year, even as they're getting 2021 returns in this year. Wow. So the fact is they're really way behind. Number 2, as you all know, if you've ever tried, you cannot talk to anyone at the IRS anymore. I can talk to them. I have immediate contact that is assigned to me, but you can't get through. And so people are really frantic. They're frantic, because of their refunds. That general advice I say is, hey, no, don't refile a new return. Don't go updating your return. Mm-hmm. Yes, if you can go to IRS.GOV, where's my refund? It's never updated. So you can't find out. Just be patient. Your refund from last year will come eventually with 3% interest. But people have other things they need to know from the IRS. What triggered what I'm about to say was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they started sending out something called CP80 notices. And basically what they said was, we have a credit for you, but we can't find your return. And the way that happened is they were very efficient. If you deposited, you made your tax payment electronically, they credited it to your account. If you mailed in a paper return, I'm talking about a year ago, they slid open the envelope, took the check, you saw it get deposited in the government's account, and they credited that to your account. And then they put your paper return, especially, in a big pile to look at later. And before those returns get looked at, there's a big pile of people where they have some question about the maybe the $10,200 of unemployment compensation. They made up a million reasons to do the easy stuff first, and they got 11 million hard stuff returns. So they sent out these letters to people saying, refile your return. And then 2 weeks later, they said, don't do that. Don't refile your return. They realized what a bad mistake. Just hang out and wait. Here's how you find out what's going on with the IRS. The IRS has created a place, which you can't find unless you follow my instructions, believe me, to create your own account. They call it ID, like identity, ID.me, but you can't just go there. And it's not easy to find on the IRS website. And when you get that account, which is easy to open with your name and your social security number, perfectly secure as the IRS could possibly be, then you know everything they know about you. It just makes you feel better. Now, how do you get there? You go to IRS.GOV. And like I did, you start looking all over the place for create an ID me account. But all you find out up there on the top is sign in to my account. So in desperation, you go to sign into my account, and it says put your, like your name and password in there. And you go, but wait, I don't have an account. And you scroll down a little bit because it's not readily apparent, and it says forgot your password. And you go, no, I didn't forget it. I never got to create an account. And if you scroll down one little bit more, you will see in small print, create an account. Now, if you go to terrysavage.com, there's an article called Create an IRS ID Me account, and you have a direct link to that page. Once you create that account, you'll see everything that anybody who was ever helping you on the phone would have been able to tell you. And mostly you're going to see a credit because they took your money last year, and they have no information from that return, 2020's return filed last year. So now a lot of you are going to have a problem. When you go to file electronically, you're going to be asked to input, just to verify who you are, what was your adjusted gross income from last year? And you're going to look at your copy of your return. Sorry, I'm going on about this, Dan, but this is
no, this is gold. This is absolute gold.
All right.
I'm riveted. Okay. Go.
So even though you filed electronically, you kept probably a paper copy or a virtual copy of your return. And you'll go, oh, last year, my adjusted gross income was $119,512.22, whatever you in TurboTax for your account figured out. And you're going to go put that in and say, yes, recognize me. I'm filing again this year. And $119,000 goes in. They go, well, we don't know you. They don't know you because they haven't still not gotten to your last year's return. So you have to put 0 in what was your adjusted gross income last year, because 0 is what they have in your ID Me account, okay, for your AGI, because they don't have your return in there. They just have the credit that you paid $12,809 in taxes. It's just sitting there on their books. And if, by the way, 0 doesn't work, first you try your last year's AGI. That doesn't work, you put in 0. Then you go back to your 2019 return, which you filed 2 years ago as the pandemic started, and try that AGI, because they're using your previous AGI as a way to verify you, but they aren't up to date on tracking your previous returns. And that, my friends, is a bedtime story about your $10 at work.
But that's the kind of information that my listeners and viewers want to hear. They want to hear inside stuff, inside baseball, inside taxes. And what you're saying is this is the way to go in. Now, ongoing after they get caught up, let's hope.
To get well, when's that?
Okay, then that account that you've established will really be of some serious value at that point, I'm assuming, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Did you ever, remember in the olden days when you made airline reservations at the counter and you wanted to look, or at the bank, you wanted to look over the counter and see what they were typing in there? Literally, your ID Me account at the IRS lets you see what their phone reps would have let you see. And I hope they're all out of business because they're not doing anything anyway.
Right.
But that's another story.
Well, we're going to have
I
that link on the
editorialized.
site. That link she just referred to, I'll make sure that my team has that on our site so that you can link directly there. And if that isn't reason, there's reason before this to follow Terry Savage. I'm telling you right now, that stuff I didn't know, and I'm in this weeds head, up to the head. I mean, I'm into this, so that was new to me. How did you stumble across that, Miss Savage?
Because I have a blog. Don't overwhelm me. I mean, I stay up really late at night. I'm sure I've been on TV or done a podcast or something. I get overloaded with questions. And I can spot trends, first of all, because people, I do so much radio and TV that I'll get 10 or 15 or 20 questions, and they all focus on a thing. And the thing of this year seems to be that people are trying to file electronically and get identified by last year's AGI are having problems. So then I can contact my IRS guy. Oh, yeah, right. Well, we stopped telling people to refile. That was a mistake. I said, but how do you get that? Well, we're not publicizing this ID Me account, but you can get it.
Well, it's getting ready to get out there because once it hits the podcast, and this is arguably the fastest growing financial podcast in the country right now. That wasn't planned, Terry. It just happened because I bring on superstars like you. But but it's doing great. Let's go to number 2, which is under the category of check your beneficiary. That's a loaded question, Terry. I'm going to throw you the ball. What do we do?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the worst thing possible that could happen is you die and you forgot and left your ex-wife as the beneficiary, or ex-husband, as the beneficiary of your IRA, your life insurance policy, or if you're getting up there, think back to the olden days when you had a pension fund. And that pension fund, you started work at 26, you just left, you worked there for 17 years. They didn't know about rolling it. They didn't let you roll it. But now you die and there's a pension for you. And way back when, you named your spouse as the beneficiary. Your spouse isn't your spouse. All kinds of complications. So this is a good time. You're getting around to thinking about your income taxes. A lot of people I have IRAs all over the place because when I was setting them up, I wanted to make sure I got all the information they used to mail you in those days from T. Rowe Price and Vanguard and Fidelity and Schwab and American Century. So I have a whole bunch of them. And that's really nice because you can name a different beneficiary for each one of them if you want. But it's time to make a list. And I have this, I can dig it out right here in my bottom desk drawer of, here are my IRAs. My Fidelity IRA is, first of all, I put the toll-free number down because this is going to come up a little bit, some of my other tips. My Fidelity, the toll-free number Fidelity is, my account number is, my password, my sign-in is, they're not all my email. In fact, none of the IRAs use my email. And my password is this. And the beneficiaries are and if that beneficiary is alive, then the secondary beneficiary. You never want to leave an IRA to your estate. You lose all kinds of benefits in rolling it out and so forth. And if you haven't done that, do it right now. And if you go, oh my goodness, now it's easy with IRAs because you're all online and you go to the Fidelity website or Schwab or T. Rowe Price or whatever Vanguard. And you can change your beneficiary just by signing in and reviewing your stuff, just like you could change your address. You change your beneficiary. You don't like your son-in-law anymore and you were going to leave him $25,000? Leave it to someone else. Don't leave it to a minor because you need to set up a trust for a minor or the state will. But it's really easy to change beneficiaries. Now, where it's tough is insurance companies, you typically don't have that online access to your account.
And that's where we come in, Terry. My staff. Yes.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
good.
my staff. Well, if you work with us, I have, all my staff W-2 employees. They're not outside contractors. We will help you with that. We'll help you get your arms around all the beneficiaries and all the stuff that Terry just listed. If you have annuities through us, and we can help you, go through the weeds and get all that together, because you need to do that, as she said, because things change. And you might have a wondering ambiguity of a child, as I call them, that you no longer want to have 100% of what you have. You might want them to
Yeah.
have 50%.
Now, let
So,
me tell you about some of the complications. If you go to terrysavage.com, you can see this. Is 26 states, this is weird, have, so many examples of people forgetting to change the beneficiary have happened.
mhm.
That 26 states and counting, and yours could be next, so don't ask me which ones, have passed something called a revocation upon divorce. And it says that they assume that you really meant to write your ex out, even though you didn't change the beneficiary. You didn't mean to. So the estate, maybe you did. Maybe it was part of your divorce decree. Honey, you'll always get my IRA. I love you. We were married 22 years, 30 years. We're divorced now, but I'm going to leave you something. I can't afford life insurance anymore because I'm older and can't qualify for health reasons, but I'm going to make you the beneficiary of my IRA, you say to your ex. And the state comes along and says, Joe didn't mean that. We're going to make it his next of kin, which could either be his new wife or his kids. This I learned, and have you ever had Ed Slott on for your show? The IRA Help, the IRA Guru. I attended a 2-day workshop of his a couple of weeks ago. And I learned about all the ways you could screw up in naming your beneficiary. Now, here's something interesting. Take a divorced man. This is a real case. I went to the Supreme Court. He named his kids as beneficiaries on his plan documents. This applies to ERISA plans like pension and 401k. But when he remarried, the state law said his spouse, those pension laws, like if you were a policeman or a municipal worker, you could take it all over your lifetime, but your spouse has to waive her rights. And a spouse has to waive rights on an ERISA pension or a 401k. Otherwise, the spouse inherits and gets the estate. So this guy thought his second marriage, he named his kids as beneficiaries on his 401k. But the state law said that his current spouse, not his ex, but his current spouse, was really the rightful beneficiary because she hadn't signed a waiver. So I'm telling all of you that this beneficiary question, the worst part about it is when they figure out that you made a mistake, you're not going to be there to fix it. That's after you're done.
I'm trying to figure out, Terry, how this got passed. I mean, this seems very aggressive.
Yeah, I thought that
proactive.
too. What they said at the seminar was, you really want your ex-spouse to be the beneficiary, then and let's just call it an IRA. IRAs, by the way, are not subject to these ERISA laws. So IRA, the named beneficiary, the one you put in there online, that's the person that will get it. Even if you are currently married and you name your kids, an IRA is not protected under ERISA. ERISA protects 401ks and pensions, and they say that your current spouse has a right. So the law here is very complex, and you just want to make sure that your estate is going directly. Now, don't you have a lot of annuities, Stan, where there's a death benefit at the end if you...
Yeah, I mean, the majority of annuities that we sell, there's so many different annuity types, but the majority, there's listed beneficiaries for the death benefit or whatever's left over in the account. And so, I'd say 99% of those annuities that we sell, and we sell more than anybody on the planet, have beneficiaries. And we tell people all the time, let's review those on an annual basis. And I think Terry's pointing that out. Definitely. We review them all the time. And remember, with annuities, beneficiaries, they can be changed as many times as you want. Just use my team to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need a lawyer. That's a big thing.
No.
I think they need a lawyer to do this. No, just name the person and then make sure that if you have a current spouse and your current spouse is not the beneficiary of an ERISA plan, a 401k or a pension, make sure that your spouse has signed a waiver. Otherwise, it's not going to your kids. It's going to the person to whom you're married when you die.
One of the things I tell people all the time, when people go from chapter 1 of their life to chapter 2, and chapter 2 is about retirement, your lifestyle, living that bucket list that you put together. But you do have a part-time job, and that part-time job in chapter 2 of your life and I'm speaking to all you baby boomers that are hitting 65 every single day, all 10,000 of you, and the people beyond that. That part-time job is managing you and managing those assets you've worked so hard to create. And that's what Terry's talking about here. You've got to segment some time to make sure that you got your arms around everything, because it can get away from you, especially the beneficiary stuff, because you kind of forget where everything is or who's the beneficiary or who you want to be beneficiary. And life changes, people change, people pass away, people move away, people make people mad, etc. So I think the check your beneficiary thing, we're going to go back through these after we finish up. But let's go to number 3, because I want to make sure we get everything in.
Yeah, and I have a lucky strike extra for you at the end. Okay.
Good. Okay, the third one is, I know people think about doing this and see the TV ads, but we're serious now. Check your credit report. Go.
Okay, look, I know you have such a sophisticated audience. Anybody who listens to you, by definition, you know you have good credit. I mean, you must get a thing from Credit Karma every month or so saying, oh, look at your score went up 2 points and your score is already, a very high score. So you're not worried about your credit report. But I urge you to do, if you do, well, I want you to do all of these things, but I urge you immediately to go to annualcreditreport.com. Not free credit report, not get your credit report free, not any kind of credit report. Annualcreditreport.com. Even that is kind of a pitfall to get through it. You do not have to sign up for protective services or warning services or early warning. Just go to one of the bureaus right through Annual Credit Report. You can link to TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. Get your credit report. You get it right online. You don't have to wait these days. It used to come by mail. I remember those.
I do.
Read it. What are you looking for? The stuff you recognize and the stuff you don't recognize. Aren't you surprised that your old, but a Saks Fifth Avenue credit card is still on there? Close the ones you're not using. Make sure that you're up to date. Your mortgage payment information is going to be on there. Make sure you recognize everything that's on there. Now, look at all the inquiries for the past year. Because remember that whole big explosion of unemployment fraud benefits? Without your knowing it, someone, Joe Schmo, could have taken your name and social security number. Don't ask me where they get it. That's all over the internet. Look at all those breaches. And used your credit with his address, okay, and email address, and opened account at XYZ Bank, and there's some that are more famous for that, and applied for unemployment benefits. And the states were so messed up, I forget how many billions of dollars were passed out, particularly in California, but in Illinois and a bunch of other states, fraudulently claimed, sent directly to Joe Schmo using your social security or your name even in social security, but all emailed and direct deposited to a bank somewhere. And those unemployment benefits were scammed. If there's an inquiry from another bank, XYZ Bank, call that bank. Make sure there's no account open under your name and social security. Then while you're there, freeze your credit. Go to all
Agreed. This is so key. My credit is totally frozen solid because 20 years ago, someone tried to hack and do something. And from that point, I froze it, period. Because a lot of people are now, taking home equity loans off your home.
Exactly.
There's all kinds of nonsense happening.
All kinds of stuff. So freeze your credit. That means no one can open new credit in your name. And you get a PIN. So if you're going to go life insurance shopping or car shopping or something like that, you can lift it for an inquiry from that particular company.
Right.
There's no reason not to freeze your credit now. So that's your other challenge. That's challenge number 3. Do it. Don't just say I'm gonna do it, or my credit's got to be okay. Nothing's happened to me. A whole second life could be going on.
Well, and to unwind that, and I've had some clients tell me some horror stories. It is horrific. And to unfreeze your credit is just, you can say, it's very easy. You can say this person and this person or organization only can look at it, and they have 7 days to look at it, and after that it closes, or 2 days or whatever. But freezing your credit should be part of your retirement plan. It really should.
I mean, nobody should be looking at your credit. And that's it. So I know that's so mundane. I mean, I know it's a sophisticated audience here, but it's the little things that trip you up. I mean, you're all smart. You're listening to Stan. You're not being sold annuities by a bunch of raving maniacs out there giving you a chicken dinner or whatever it is. But is anybody having dinner in person anymore? So maybe Stan, they aren't doing.
They're coming back. Yeah, they're coming back,
coming back.
and they're expensive steak dinners. The great example, Terry, I was going to say, is I played college basketball, and one of the great coaches of all time his name was John Wooden, and every year when they started practice at UCLA, and they arguably had the best teams in the country, the best talent in the country, they would start the first practice he would teach them how to put on their socks and teach them how to put on their shoes and teach them how to properly tie their shoes. And you're saying, Stan, that's crazy. No, it's not. That's what we're doing here. We're doing stuff here that no brainer, slap your head. Yes, that makes sense, but you never do it. What we're saying, and Terry's yelling at you very nicely with a smile, is to do it. Stop putting it off. These are the 5 things you need to do right now and part of your plan ongoing, and it totally makes sense. So what's number 4? Considering the what ifs, Terry, that's a loaded one. What
but I want you to know I was going to impress you by knowing that John Wooden was UCLA because my son went to school there. I thought I would impress you with something other than
nice. Go Bruins. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
All right. If you didn't like if you just hated the advice so far, okay, about your beneficiaries, that's just paperwork. I don't do paperwork. I'm all digital. I don't do that. Credit report. I know it's digital, but I mean, my credit's fine. Okay. How about this? Consider the what if. What if? I mean, I know you're immortal. Oh, son of a gun, Stan. None of us is getting out of here alive. But
that's true.
Okay, that's the one thing we all share in common.
One out of one of us is going to die. It's a problem. That's going to happen.
Okay. You just don't know when.
No.
How much do you want to bet that it won't be tomorrow before you get your stuff organized? Think about the possibilities. I'm very superstitious. I'm going to tell you this. And I think if you leave this stuff unplanned, you are really tempting fate. So if I can't think of any other way to persuade you to deal with the what ifs, it's like you are really tempting fate. So think about this. You get hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow. Or worse, you're in a coma because you're jaywalking looking at your phone and someone thinks. Okay. Now, you're either dead or you're in a coma. What happens to all your stuff? Now, I'm really serious about this. I mean, I think your first thing is my dog's home alone. Does anybody have a spare key? Is there anybody I check in with regularly that knows I'm alive and that would report me? Okay, you're so independent. You don't check in with your mom. Okay, my son doesn't call me either. But the fact of the matter is, I have a couple of friends, and if they didn't hear from me, or I do a regular radio show, by then, they'd find me. But what about your pet? But in all seriousness, think about all the stuff. Maybe you have all your passwords locked up in a password vault, but maybe nobody knows where that vault is or how to access it. Maybe they can't even get onto your computer because nowhere did you write down what the password is to open your laptop or your computer or your phone even, okay? Yeah, you're keeping it secret from your girlfriend. You don't want her to know who you're texting. But who knows the password even to your phone? I'm very old-fashioned, so you'll think this is old-fashioned. I think you need to either create a file on your computer or a password vault, or if you're a little bit older, maybe you just want to write down, I have an account at Bank of America. The sign-in is joesmith@msn.com, and my password is JM1234, which is probably what everybody's is. And I have one at Chase, and I have an account at Schwab, and I have an account at Fidelity, and these are a list of all my passwords. I mean, forget your Netflix password. They'll just keep billing you after you're dead. That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about all your financial passwords. Then here's another thing. Who knows I'm coming to making a will a little bit later, but who knows that who your doctor is, who your lawyer is, who your broker is, who all the important people are. Don't you need a list in case you're taken to the hospital in an ambulance in a coma? Don't you need to say, My will is at Joe Schmo Legal Associates. And don't you need to have a copy in this folder of your living will? Don't keep me alive on tubes. Don't you need to have a healthcare power of attorney? You're not married, it's not your spouse. Who is it going to be that's around and available? And we'll say, don't put him through that. But this is what medical treatments he would have wanted. This is his living will. I mean, I could go on and on, but what I did at terrysavage.com years ago, so you can add to this some of your things. On the top right corner at terrysavage.com, there are a bunch of boxes to get stuff free. And there's my personal financial organizer form. You can fill it in online and then print it out. A lot of people are scared to fill anything in online. I'm not keeping it. Print it out blank. Make as many copies as you want. Give it out to your family at the Mother's Day brunch or the Father's Day brunch or the next time you all get together. Fill it out. Don't put it in your safe deposit box, because one of the questions on there is, my safe deposit box is a Century Trust, and the key is hidden in my sock drawer. You got to put that somewhere. So leave that information somewhere along with a copy of your will and your estate plan. So in a drawer, and if you're at the stage where you're withdrawing from your IRAs, your year-end IRA account statements and balances, so they know all these accounts, leave that stuff somewhere where someone you trust could get it. It's not for the cleaning lady to find it. I will have to tell you this. I'm too old to make this joke, but I used to say, I'll tell you where I put mine. I put mine in my black lingerie drawer because nobody goes there anymore. That was my funny. Now it's just like weird for me to be saying that, but
it's still good. I like the joke. That's funny.
But make that list, and if you don't know what to write down, if you haven't, your cemetery deed, because you might have one that your parents had and gave to you because you're the eldest child and now you're in charge of it. All those things there's a place for them on this form. So give them to you. And listen, I know not everybody's, one foot in the grave here, but print this out in blank form and give it to your parents on Mother's Day or Father's Day. What a great way to start the discussion called, I don't want to know what's in there, Dad. I'm not telling you to not buy, get out of Facebook or Meta or whatever it is, or get out of the tech stocks. Just could you make this list? I don't even have to look at it, but fill it out and then tell me where it is.
The other thing that I want to point out too is I address with my clients, whether they want me to or not, the eventual cognitive decline on all of us. And so we don't know when the cognitive decline is going to be. Forget death for a second, but the decline of you remembering things and things like that, that's a motivation as well. I know every single year, just my story on this, because I've had so many clients pass away and not be prepared, even though I told them to be prepared. I'm overly prepared. Every year I have a dinner with my wife and my two daughters. I call it the death dinner, and they hate it. But I tell them, here's how it's going to work when I pass away. Here's where the information is. We have, this lawyer has a copy. This lawyer has a copy. There's a copy in the safe deposit box. There's a digital copy in the cloud of all the passwords, everything you need, all the people to call that, if I pass away tomorrow, or if me and your mom pass away tomorrow, this is what's going to happen. Now, my daughters look at it and go, man, I wish you guys would just leave the building now because we'd have this money and we could go do our thing. But that aside.
That's not what they're thinking. My son hates, Mom, you already told me that it's in that drawer. You already told me that a dozen times. I know, but it makes me feel better to know that because I worked my whole life for this. Don't let the government take it away because you made mistakes.
And don't depend on technology. I always say technology works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I have all, people say, well, you're telling me, Stan, that you have all your stuff, passwords, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, all the stuff in hard copy format. Yeah, I did actually. And it's in the safe deposit box with 1 and 2 specific lawyers, because who knows what's going to happen. At the time of this taping, and we're talking about cyber war with other countries. You don't know what's going to happen. So, and we're not being gloom and doomers here. I think Terry is just saying, just like we do with everything, be prepared. Be proactive. As Wayne Gretzky says, skate where the puck's going to be, not after the puck, as they say in hockey. So I think that's it's sage advice, but all of this stuff is somewhat of no-brainers, but we're reminding you that it's important. And I'm also reminding people that listening to this podcast and watching the YouTube channel, we're right. And this is your part-time job. This is your homework. There's no excuses. This is your homework. You exercise every day. You do this. You make sure you're on top of things. You manage your life, and then you go live it and enjoy it. So number 5, the big issue. What's the big issue that you're talking about here, Terry?
I talk to people all the time in social conversations. I can destroy a party, cocktail party faster than anybody else when I start talking about stuff like this. And I guess the one big stopper is, I suppose if I were from the IRS, that would stop conversations. But I think the big stopper in all my conversations is, so when did you last update your will? If you say that, by the way, to a couple, and I say this to you, I turn into, quote, Terry Savage. My son hates it when I do that. I can't have it. Oh, we just had a baby. Oh, great. Have you updated your will? What? Do you have a will, honey? No, but you were going to do it. You said we were going to get around to it. Look, I wrote a book. I'm not trying to sell it. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $10 or $11 now. It's just 2 years old. And it's current in just about everything except RMDs now start at age 72. That's a big change. But it's called The Savage Truth on Money. And all of these issues are discussed there. And the one I spend a lot of time on is explaining the difference between a will and a revocable living trust. So I won't go into this whole thing 101. But the best thing you can do is create, same thing, but a revocable living trust. Works the way a will does, but protects your assets and your control over them while you're alive but incapacitated. So if you create a revocable living trust, you put all the will stuff in there. I want my daughter to get my diamond engagement ring and my daughter-in-law to get my pearls, all that kind of stuff. But you've also retitled assets like your house, investment accounts that are not retirement accounts, and other properties, your vacation house. And the person who you name as successor trustee, probably your spouse if you're married, but your eldest son or your lawyer, has the authority when you can't act to do things so that they could take care of you, take care of your money. If your investment account outside your IRA is in the name of the John Smith Revocable Living Trust, the successor trustee is Peter, your attorney. Peter can say, you know what, he's going to need medical attention. Let's just sell all these stocks right now, put it in cash, and we'll be able to pay for the nursing care that he needs or something like that. You don't look at me if you haven't updated your will or revocable living trust in the last 3 years. And don't look at me. It's totally useless to create a revocable living trust. It has nothing to do, by the way, with inheritance taxes. Nothing whatsoever. Under the current law, there are no inheritance taxes unless you leave an estate well over $12 million. So this is not about just rich people. It's about people with families, people with spouses, people who want their instructions to be followed. It should cost you, if you're in a big city, $3,500 maybe. In a small town, $1,250. Make your revocable living trust. Do it. I really mean it. You're tempting fate if you don't.
And revisit it every single year. Look at it.
If not every couple of years, when your children get older. What happens, when your daughter gets married? Hey, here's a great one. Your daughter is married to a guy you don't really like, and you're her mother's dead, and you've got some money, and you've left everything to her. Let's just say it that way. Does she know that the minute she says, honey, I inherited $4 million, we can buy that big house now? And they take their current house and sell it for $987,000, and they take that money, less the mortgage, $400,000 or $500,000, and she takes another $1 million out of her inheritance and puts it into the name of the new house, the John and Mary Smith house. She's compromised her entire inheritance. It's going to go to your jerk son-in-law. Set up some trust, set up some things that make it less likely that all the money you work for all your life is going to get dissipated in a divorce that's coming down the road. It's coming. So don't look at me. Don't just look at the person next to you listening to this and say, okay, of all the things she said, of our credit report and our beneficiaries, those are all important kinds of things. And our list of where our passwords and where our stuff is. We really got to make that call tomorrow morning.
Well, and a lot of people on this listen to this podcast and watching the YouTube channel. They probably came where I came from, and maybe where you came from. I came from no money, and my parents didn't think like this, and they didn't talk like this. And there's a lot of people out there listening going, and I've worked hard, and just you're almost surprised that you're at this level of assets that you've achieved because you scraped and
Yeah.
you've
Because of the
saved
bull
and you've done
market.
without, and and you're here. The market's done well, and you're here. What I'm going to tell you to do is set a precedent for your family, and show them. You be the first one. You start doing this. Show your family how to do this. If you're going to leave a legacy, this is a great legacy. My daughters know where everything's at. They know about the life insurance. They know where the annuities are. They know the beneficiary situation. They know the trust. They have met the lawyers. They have met all of these people. And guess what? When they have children and spouses, they're going to do the same thing. Why? Because I've taught them how to do it. Now, my father was a good man and my mom's fantastic. She's still alive in St. Augustine, Florida, but they didn't teach me that. In fact, I've had to do that for her, my mom.
For them, yes.
Yeah, and that's okay. But this is a teachable moment. And I just want people to just sit back and realize where you are. A lot of times, Terry, I have these conversations with people and they'll say, well, I have this amount of money. I go, you do know that you're classified as the evil rich. I know you don't consider yourself the evil rich and you don't live like that, but you have made it. Congratulate yourself, but you got one more step to do, which is what Terry's talking about here, is a couple of checklists on an annual basis just to make sure that you protect what you've worked so darn hard for. But you forget that. You really do, because guess what? No one's taught you. We're teaching you again. We're reminding you again, and it's on you to teach your family as well.
Exactly. And by the way, it's a tough conversation this is to have with your kids, like you with your daughter or me with my son. They don't want to hear about it. I mean, it's like thinking about your parents having sex. It's just that you don't want to think about them doing that.
You had to do that. Now I've got that in my head. Oh,
sorry about that, Stan. Well, but the harder conversation is having it with your parents.
Right.
I mean, okay, and how to bring this up to them without making it seem like either you think they're incompetent or you're trying to get their stuff before they go, kind of a thing.
Right.
Welcome to terrysavage.com. The box on the top right hand corner, that personal financial organizer, when you print it out, because it says, where's your will? Do you have a deed to a cemetery plot? It's not just your passwords. Where are my accounts? Who's your lawyer? Who's your doctor? Who's your heart specialist? And the phone numbers, of course, and so forth, and the addresses. Those are what's your Medicare supplement policy? You know, where is that? You've got your card, all that kind of stuff. It starts by filling out that kind of form with them. I mean, for yourself, you'd need self-discipline. But for them, it starts the discussion. Gee, Mildred, I don't know. Do you know where the cemetery deed is? Dad, you were in World War, the Korean War, maybe now it's Vietnam War. You get a free headstone from the military. Do you have your military discharge papers? Those are the kinds of things that you'll be scrambling for in the most horrible time of your life when you lose your parents.
And I guess with COVID, and it's been horrific 2 years, right? Yeah. COVID should be the motivator, because I mean, there could be a black swan event health-wise. Forget stock market black swans. I think we've all realized that the stock market's great, all that stuff's great, but at the end of the day, it's good to be alive, right? Nod your head, everybody. But yeah, I think this is great. You said you had kind of one last thing. You had a surprise for me. What's the surprise, Terry? This
is off topic, but I just posted a column. And so if you've all said, okay, enough, I've heard her rag on me enough. I'm going to tell you something that's pretty new and you might not be aware of. Any of you out there sell on eBay or take payment for your services by Venmo or eBay?
Sure.
Okay, big news this year. For 2022, you're going to get a 1099K if you have any transactions or group of transactions with the same person over $600. This is, I know I'm changing gears here, but I just
oh my God, is this the $600 thing we've been hearing about the IRS?
About it. Let me tell you what this is. It's not a new concept. It's just a new lower limit. In previous years, any of these service providers like PayPal, or Venmo, were required to report any transaction, send a 1099K over $20,000, or if in fact there were more than 200 transactions. So you're Joe the plumber. I don't know if you're reporting all this stuff or not, but you go fix Mrs. Smith's kitchen sink and you say, just pay me by Venmo. Mm-hmm. Or you're Susie and you've got a whole bunch of stuff in your basement, and you say, or old clothes, that's another big thing on some of these apps. You say, I could sell a bunch of this, it'd be worth a couple $1,000s.
Right.
Each one of the apps, and I'm going to tell you about one exception, which I'm wondering if that will apply, but each one of these apps now has a spot on it. For sure, PayPal, when you pay someone by PayPal, it can say, this is a transaction among friends and family, or this is for goods and services. If this is your sister repaying you because you went halfsies on the present for mom, and she's sending you a Venmo payment or a PayPal payment for $200, then just designate it as between friends and family and not for goods and services. Because otherwise, there's going to be a 1099 sent out in January.
My goodness.
If a lot of people, you pay your dog walker or your trainer, who
house cleaner.
House cleaner. Well, we all know about that ever since.
I need that because I can't clean anything.
Yeah, well, someone has to come around behind you.
Somebody
but the
has
point
to clean it.
is, I have no idea next January when all these apps start sending out 1099s. They'll send a copy to the IRS on
Of course.
Your dividends and interest. But they have not got through 11 million returns from 2020, much less 2021. But it's going to happen. Now, the one place, and I'm working on this as a follow-up story. I wrote this column, it's up at terrysavage.com, about the 1099K. And I got contacted immediately by Zelle, by the PR department. And they said, Zelle, which was created by a consortium of banks to transfer money. So now if you're online banking, it'll say this can be done electronically. This one we have to print out a check for Susie if you want to pay her through your online payment app, or we can Zelle the money, okay? Zelle says, and it's on its website, and I'm waiting to hear what the IRS says back. Call me back. Zelle says it's exempt from sending 1099K reports because it's just a bank financial platform and it's not an app, it doesn't hold your money and then pay it out. So Zelle might be the exception. It's had recently headlines about its own financial problems.
I was going to say it's an exception for now.
So I'm waiting to see if the IRS is going to say, oh yeah, Zelle, you don't have to do it. But right now they say they are. But remember, this is for not something you have to worry about filing now. But next year at this time, now a bunch of people said, well, my grandmother died and she left me her china and I sold it. What was the cost of it? If it's an inheritance, under the current law, the cost is the basis on the date of her death. So if her china cost $200 in 1942 and you sell it for $2,000 now, your cost is $2,000. But if you sell that old bicycle on Nextdoor and you get payment by Venmo, right, your kid's bicycle, and maybe it costs, whatever bicycles cost, $150. 4 years ago, it's been rusting in the basement, and you sell it for $75. It's going to be on you to document the fact that you sold it at a loss instead of a profit. I have no idea how the IRS is going to look at it. But my last Terry's tip of the day is, if you are selling stuff on eBay or selling stuff on Nextdoor and getting paid, make sure the person says it's a friend-to-friend or family-to-family transaction. You're collecting rent from your son because he's living in the guest room and he's out of college now and you thought you should. That's a family-to-family. That's not going to be income to you. But it's going to be next year's big story.
Yeah, and PayPal has that choice. You can choose if it's a business transaction or a personal transaction. And so just be careful out there. But I think it's obvious the IRS is trying to regulate and make money off of current technology cash transactions, right? And this is this is the conspiracy theory of the whole blockchain thing, that eventually everything's going to be blockchain so that everything's going to be traceable. And that's the conspiracy theory for the day.
Yeah, well, so the big thing about blockchain is everybody said, well, it's so impersonal and they can't track it. You get money out of China and da-da-da-da. But they just found $3.8 billion that was stolen. Right. And you're right, once it's on the blockchain, it's immutable. So we're probably not going to live long enough to see how the impact of that is. But I remember years ago reporting on the underground economy, cash. You pay your plumber cash.
Right.
And off. Well, we were getting away from that and getting to the cashless society. We got there. How really do you use actual cash money now? I'll Venmo that to you. Okay, fine. I'll send it to you. Okay, Venmo, PayPal, da-da-da-da. now they're watching everything.
It's
And
it's a matter of time that I always said that I probably won't see it because my Learjet Terry that I lease will probably hit the mountain. No, I don't lease a Learjet, but I want to. But I do think that eventually, my prediction is there will be no April 15th in the future. It'll be real-time taxation off the blockchain.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, to the IRS, there is no April 15th anyway, because last year was May 15th.
I understand, but you follow what I'm saying. There won't be a date. Right. There won't be a quarterlies. I think at the end of the day, if they go in that direction, which I think they will, there'll be no inflation and there'll be taxation immediately and real time. And I think that's where they want to head. They governments in general. Don't know if me and you will see that, but I think my children, your children will see that. But that's a topic for another time. Terry Savage. You know?
Well, I will just leave you with the good news thought about that, so you don't have to worry about it too much.
Give me your mic drop moment, because we are running up against the end of the segment.
The IRS just said that they're using 1960s computers. I mean, really seriously, 1960s computers. That's why they asked for more money. It's just public knowledge a couple of weeks ago. So you don't have to worry about them taxing you in real time anytime soon, because they don't have the equipment to do it.
Well, my favorite Bernie Madoff story was that he ran that whole scam on a 386 computer. And anyone knows what a 386 computer, they were using floppy disk for the files for clients. That's a true story. So I don't know. It's weird times like this that people like you, Terry Savage, are worth everything. And I'm so glad that you joined us, because the insight that you provide and the trends that you spot are phenomenal. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Dan. Anytime. I love this with you. I never get this much time, so thanks a lot. And thank you for being.
Yeah, I'm a little crazy, Terry, but I mean well, right?
We have that in common.
Well, listen, to everybody listening on all the major podcast platforms and YouTube channel, thanks for joining me on the #1 annuity podcast and the fastest growing financial podcast on the planet. Just happens to be called a weird title called Fun with Annuities. My name is Stan the Annuity Man, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to Fun with Annuities. Please hit the subscribe button and make sure to go to my site at theannuityman.com, where you can run your own SPIA, DIA, and QLAC quotes and see a live feed of the best MIGA fixed rates in the country, and even get indexed and income rider quotes as well. You can also sign up for my 6 Annuity Owner's Manual books, and I'll ship them for free and under no obligation. I also encourage you to schedule a one-on-one call with me, Stan the Annuity Man, so we can have a full discussion of your specific situation. It will be the best brutally factual and truthful advice you will ever get, and that's one guarantee you should definitely take advantage of. So join me next time for the #1 annuity podcast on the planet, Fun with Annuities.